So, for my lesson, I decided to focus on fourth grade English. And for this lesson, the focus is on determining a theme and summarizing a piece of literature. So, to begin my lesson, I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of let the students know what materials they would be needing for the day, just to kind of cut down on transition time. So, my very first slide includes the materials that they will need, which is just the pencil, notebook, paper, their Chromebook, and then the book that this lesson is focused around, which is Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume. And I decided to include the Chromebook specifically because I do have a couple activities that are web based. So instead of having the students get the Chromebooks in and out of their desks, I thought that it'd be a great idea to just kind of have it out and available for them so that they won't have to take more class time to locate their materials. So to begin the lesson, I thought that this was kind of eye-catching for students, and I thought it would gain their attention. So, given that my lesson is focusing on theme and summarizing literature, I thought that these two pictures were kind of cute and students might be drawn to them. So, the first picture here is theme, and then this guy is just kind of questioning what theme is, which is probably relatable to many of the students in the class. In third grade, they do briefly go over theme and summarization, but of course, not every student will feel comfortable with these two ideas. So, and then my next picture, it just says, I just need the main ideas, which is kind of alluding to summarization. Oh, okay. So then my next slide is a video, and this is kind of going over how to find a theme. So I thought that this was a really cute video. It's rather short as well. It's about 5 minutes, but I probably would only show the first 4 minutes because after that, it just basically summarizes the whole video again, which I could just do on my own. So that this is Superhero, which really appeals to fourth graders and basically all elementary students, and probably most students. So I thought that this would be kind of eye-catching as well, and I thought that it would be a great way to introduce the lesson because it would kind of give them a little bit more background on it in like a fun, entertaining way. And so my next slide is the learning objective for the student purpose. So my standard is determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text. Summarize the text. And then those are the two ISTE standards, which I won't read them just because they are a bit lengthy. But my two I can statements, which is what the students in my class would be using, is I can determine a theme in a story. And then the second I can statement is I can summarize literature that I read. And so this is the lesson plan purposes. So that's basically just the ELA standard, which I just read, and then the ISTE standards. And these would both be on the BW template. So, okay, my first one is just kind of going over background knowledge. So I decided to use Poll Daddy for my surveying. So this is kind of what it looks like. You hit Start Survey. There we go. So since the students would already have their Chromebook, I would basically just go over with them how to kind of access this website. I would not put this in my lesson plan if students were not familiar with it. So if students were not familiar with this sort of surveying, I would choose a different survey to use in class just because we are trying to cover two different learning objectives. So I wouldn't want to waste class time teaching how to use a new tool. So For purposes of this lesson, I'm going to say that students are familiar with this sort of tool, surveying tool. So basically, all of these questions here pertain to the story, the Judy Blume story that they just read. So this is just kind of to ensure that each student actually read the book and each student comprehends the material. So I'm able to access these results as soon as students submit them, which is really nice because it kind of just comes in a like kind of a bar graph almost, so I can see if students are comprehending the material. And I mean, it's not like they need to get every single question correct, but as long as they at least can recall the major events. So, for example, who is Mr. Yarby? They should be able to get this question correct because he was the main character. But if they maybe forgot what happened to the two missing flowers, that's not that big of a deal. And then also, this would not be taken for a grade. This would kind of just be a little informal assessment just to ensure that students actually did read the book and they are comprehending what they're reading. So then after I reviewed the results and then we kind of talked about everything regarding if they remembered all of the questions or if they need a little refresh on the story, then I would go into the actual content of my lesson. So this slide is this is the book that they read, and then I included this meme just because I thought that it might be a little appealing, so I'd kind of want to discuss what they liked and what they disliked about the book. And so then I would kind of jump into half of my learning objectives. So summarize. What does it mean to summarize a story? How should you begin to organize your thoughts? Put your finger on your nose if you know the answer to either of the questions above. So I would kind of read these questions out loud, and then I would give the students a second to think about it, and then it says put your finger on your nose if you know the answer to either of the questions above. So after they thought about these two questions and they come to an answer, that I will be able to kind of observe students and see, who's on track. And then this will also give me a way to see how many students actually know how to summarize. As I've mentioned previously, in third grade, they do cover summarization. So that's not the emphasis of this lesson as much as the theme would be an area that students would probably struggle more with. But of course, not every student will be, proficient at summarizing. So then after we all shared, I would ask them to write a summary of the story in 50 words or less. And then it says, if you would like to share your summary with the class, raise your hand. So I decided to include in 50 words or less just because the big idea with summarization is to only include the main ideas and to kind of condense what the text says instead of writing verbatim what they read. And then I just thought it'd be a great thing to kind of share because, of course, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, they love collaborative learning, especially when they get older. So I thought that'd be great to include. And then this little picture I thought was nice to include. It just kind of goes over how to summarize. So summarize it, shorter than the text, use your own words, main ideas only. And then while they were writing their summary, this summary with the 50 words or less, I would have this displayed. So maybe if they wanted to glance up at the projection, they could go ahead and read this and it might serve as like a little reminder for them. So I made this meme and it just says who would like to share their summary. I thought this was just kind of cute. Obviously fourth graders are going to know who SpongeBob is and they might think it's funny, which might encourage them to share. And so after all the students shared that would like to share their summary, we would hop right into theme. So at this point in the lesson, this would not be the first time that students hear the word theme. So we would already have like a word wall and theme would be on it. So they would be familiar with the definition of theme and they would kind of have the gist of what a theme is. But of course, they wouldn't they don't know exactly what theme is, but they are able to recall the definition of theme. So the first step says recall the definition of theme. Quietly discuss the definition of theme with your shoulder buddy. So a shoulder buddy is a term they would be familiar with that just means the person sitting next to them. And then it says raise your hand if you would like to share the definition with the class. So I would probably give them a couple minutes to kind of talk to a shoulder buddy and then reflect on what we have learned thus far about what theme is, and then they'd be able to raise their hand and share with the class what they've come up with. And then while they were kind of brainstorming with their shoulder buddy, I would have this displayed. So it says theme, the central message, what the author wants you to learn or know, a broad idea about life, usually not stated, must be inferred. So I would just kind of have this displayed while they're brainstorming, just in case maybe they forgot. I wouldn't want to have students maybe feel anxious because they may not remember. So this next slide right here is still regarding theme. So what message do you think Judy Blume wanted readers to take away from Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing? How did the characters in the book grow? What lesson did the characters in the book learn? Can you relate this lesson to your life? So these questions right here prompt them to reflect upon the definition that they would have just shared in the class. And so it says discuss these questions with your shoulder buddy. Raise your hand when you are ready to share your thoughts with the class. So this is just, again, it's a nice way for students to collaborate with one another, and then it also creates a more enriched, meaningful learning experience. And then I thought it was nice to include this picture of Judy Blume so that they can put a face to the author that they just read their work from. So then after they just kind of shared all the questions that they discussed with their shoulder buddy, I would kind of let them know that there may be more than one theme in a piece of literature. So that might be a little challenging for students to understand at first, because oftentimes in school they're told that there's typically only one right answer. So I thought that this meme would be kind of cute to make because obviously she's shocked. She's shocked at whatever's happening. So I thought it'd be nice to say like, "What? That's crazy." I thought maybe students might find that funny, and it also might help them remember that, yeah, it might sound weird at first, but there may be more than one theme, and they all may be correct. So then my next slide just kind of goes over possible themes of Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. So those possible themes may include family, friendship, kindness, jealousy, guilt and blame, or love. And then I would just kind of reiterate that while all these themes are different, they are all correct. And then my final slide for conclusion is another survey. So for this survey, I decided to use Google Forms. And as I mentioned previously, they would already have their Chromebook out, and they would be familiar with this as well. So the top just says, what'd you learn? And the first question, when summarizing, it is important to, and then there's options here. Of course, it's all of the above. So in a story, there may be more than one theme, and that's just kind of something I thought was important to include because students may find that difficult to kind of understand. So I thought it would be good to reiterate that there may indeed be more than one theme. And then, of course, what is a theme? And then these last two questions I felt were important to include because, of course, no other students are going to see any of this, but I will be able to review it. So I completely understand how to identify a theme. I completely understand how to summarize text. So that's important because now I can kind of base my future lessons on how students are comprehending material. For example, if all students were understanding a theme, then I wouldn't go over it in depth the next day. I would go over it, but I wouldn't spend, 20 minutes on it. And same thing for summarization. So this would kind of just help me to create more targeted lesson plans. And then this is my final slide. So overall, I feel that everything I included was really beneficial for students. I think that I integrated technology in meaningful ways because just with these two surveys, I'm able to get immediate feedback from students. I'm able to review how each student is comprehending, and also what each student is thinking and feeling about the material that they're learning. It kind of allows me to get personal. It allows me to get personal results for each student, but it doesn't take too much time away from class. So I'm not spending a lot of class time on, personalized one-on-one interviews with students, but I'm still gaining that feedback, which is really, really nice. And then overall, I just feel that all of the memes I included were nice. They were relatable for students. I thought that they were very relevant. I thought that students will find them funny. And then overall, I thought they'd just be kind of really engaging for students.